So good morning. Thank you for being here, and I will somehow try to further develop and extend the information that I already provided in my speech yesterday, and obviously trying to bring more details about what you could find available on FI-PPP as an environment, and the kind of technologies that are there and how they could be used. Unfortunately, we have a setting for which running demos is a bit difficult. Nevertheless, also it's very difficult to make a demo of a platform, overall a short demo of a platform. So I will mostly elaborate on some of the concepts and the description of detailed features that are going to be available on the environment. This environment, I remind you, is already available on the internet. So you just need to go to lab.fiware.org and you are there. And this is a place where all the FiWare technologies are deployed, where at least those of them which we thought were ready for usage by third developers. And you just need to create your own account following the typical process where you will receive an email. You have to accept the terms and conditions on FI-PPP, and then you are there, and you can start using the technology. So remember lab.fiware.org. We will try to visit the website. I think I can really go to. There is one slide where we can visit it for just a couple of seconds, just to show you what it is and so on. So let's continue. So this will be a place where FiWare technologies are materialized. I remind you that this is for experimentation only, but again, a place where all the technologies are up and running, so you can really start working with them, experimenting with them, and trying to develop that showcase of your application you want to show to the to customers, to the rest of the world, and hopefully find the path to the market for your nice ideas and innovative applications. Let me go quickly through a number of features that we are going to provide in that environment. The first of them has to do with the ability to set up your own virtual infrastructure for hosting your application. So the first thing you will see there on the environment will be actually a cloud environment where you will have a number of features that will allow you to set up your virtual environment. That cloud environment is based on OpenStack, but we have implemented a number of advanced features on top, besides supporting OAuth access control, which is something that is not currently supported in OpenStack, but might be rather relevant for your application. We have created a number of features that allows you to automatically deploy the software on top of the virtual infrastructures that you set up. So essentially, you first set up your virtual infrastructure, the machines and so on, but you can also develop and define that virtual infrastructure structure into what we call tiers, and then deploy the software automatically in each of the tiers in which you structure the architecture of your application. Very quickly, because it would be difficult through a demo, but I have just here a couple of snapshots that will help me to go through the different functions that you will have available there. The very basic thing that you will be able to achieve is launching virtual machines. There are several flavors of different machines linked to different computing capacities that are going to be supported, and you essentially will be able to select what image of a virtual machine you want to put in place, and just by a click you will be able to set up a virtual machine that combines both that image you have selected with the computing capacity, which is what we call the flavor, that summarize the characteristics that from the in terms of CPU, RAM, or disk your virtual machine will have. There is also, and this is quite interesting for some applications, object storage supported. So you may have an application that needs to deal with storing images or videos or stuff like that. And that is supported through a object storage capacity. So you just need to set up the space for that object storage, and then be able to create an application that relies on that for storing images and the like. Not yet available, but soon there will be a number of features dealing with a definition of some features that your virtual LANs, the virtual LANs that are part of your virtual infrastructure will support. And so you will be able to set up the different internal IPs, external IPs, on the internet, public IPs, and how the different bandwidths between the different connections is established. A very important concept that is supported. I have to say that this is not currently on FI-PPP, but is in the version that we developing and will be available in the coming months, so most probably before summer. There is the important concept of what we call regions and regions management. Actually, these are snapshots of the version that we are currently under testing. And this is a very important feature because it will allow you to distinguish which is the region on which you want to allocate the virtual machine the virtual machines on top of which your applications will be running. So typically these regions are mapped to a set of FI-PPP nodes in the FI-PPP environment. A FI-PPP node maps to the concept of a data center. And as it was explained yesterday, we are expanding the network of data centers that are available. So the whole idea is that of being able to select which region you want to deploy your virtual machine or the whole virtual infrastructure of your architecture. This might be important because you may want to experiment with the fact that your application relies partly on a particular region and the data needs to be hosted in that region because of regulatory matters or whatever like that. A very interesting feature that is currently supported, and we are further extending, is the notion of management of blueprints. Here the concept is the following. You are typically, when you design the architecture of your application, you may well define a number of tiers, okay? So typically, a web application may have 3 tiers, with the first tier having to do with the front-end portals that provide access to your application. And then second tier has to do with the management of the different processes and the business logic of your application, while a third tier has to do with actually storing the data and so on. So essentially, what FI-PPP allows you is to set up the different tiers. What you see there in circles is each of those tiers, and then a tier is made up of a number of virtual machines, and you can actually expand the number of virtual machines in real time while your application is running. And in each of those virtual machines, you will typically select an image per tier, and you will also go for the deployment of a concrete suite of software for each particular tier. So you decide then in the tier that has to do with the front-end web access. You set up virtual machines that are running Apache and Tomcat and stuff like that. In this tier that deals with the business logic, you do the similar thing, and then maybe in the third tier you go for deploying their MongoDB, just to give an example, right? So this is something that will be you can do with tools that are available on the portal, and make it rather easy to deploy the different software that might be useful for you. And of course, within the kind of software that you can automatically deploy, there will be the FI-PPP generic enablers that I will describe some of them in the coming slides. This is more or less a very short overview of the cloud kind of features that you will have available on FI-PPP. Then there is a number of generic enablers that have to do with managing data. And those are enablers that are going to be at your service, provided as a service actually, that you can use to deal with the management of data at larger scale in your application. You can rely on the existing global instances of the generic enablers that are already deployed on FI-PPP. So there are endpoints that you can find as to be able to connect to those generic enablers instances that are there in the environment. But you can also, again, using the tools that the cloud provides, you will be able to create your own instances of some of these enablers. So let me elaborate a bit on a couple of them, just to give you the very first overview of the concepts and the kind of things and the relevance of these enablers in your application. The first of them I wanted to talk about was the context broker. And the context broker is a generic enabler that we have found that is particularly useful for many applications. If you have an application that deals with management of entities, whatever kind of entities you may have, and you have to manage somehow the state that is linked to that entity, then and you have a lot of entities, so you have to deal with management of this context information at larger scale. The context broker generic enabler is actually the piece of software you need, and it's going to be particularly useful for you. So this typically applies to give some examples of applications where you are dealing with an application that in a smart city, you typically will be able to model all the entities that are relevant in the city that have a state, and you want to query about in real time at any moment in your application. So you want to have maybe some static information, but also very dynamic information that changes over time. You typically will this information might be available on some of the systems you already have in your city. So you just need to develop some connectors that extract that information and is pushing and updating the context and the values of the different attributes of the relevant entities in real time. And then applications can rely on the APIs of the context broker to get information about these entities. The context broker exports a well-defined API, which is based on standard developed by the OMA, Open Mobile Alliance, which is called NGSI. These APIs are RESTful API, and you can visit the website of FiWare and looking for the RESTful specification of the API. But very high level, with this slide I may try to describe broadly what the context broker kind of function it provides. So essentially, it's an element that that somehow works like a blackboard, if you wish. It's a blackboard where everyone can write down and inject data about the values, the updated values of attributes of existing entities, and then other applications can query or subscribe to changes in those entities. So typically an application, when here we have the notion of context producer on the left side, left hand of the slide. These are typically the sources of information in your system. It could be systems in a smart city. It could be systems connected to sensors, or even the user interacting through a web application. They are able, by means of invoking an update context operation that the context broker exports, can update the information of entities in the system. And then some other applications that we qualify as context consumer can either query for available context information. So you can query about the location of a bus in a city. That is something for which the bus transportation management system is updating the location. And then you can also subscribe to changes on that context. So you may say, okay, please send me a notification whenever the location of this entity changes to be this one, okay? Stuff like that. This context broker component can be combined with other components of what we call the data chapter, and then build together a very powerful data management platform. The two generic enablers we typically combine the context broker with are the complex event processing generic enabler that allows you to identify scenarios where you want to set up some reactions. So for instance, you may determine that whenever this and that happens in the associated to this given entities, you wish to trigger a given alarm or create an action or create an orchestration. This is something you will be able to program using rules that you set up with the complex event processing generic enabler. Last but not least, whenever the context information change, previous values are recorded in the historic data of the system, and this is typically set up through a connection with the big data platform. A big data platform, which is the big data generic enabler, that is a technology that is based on Hadoop, will be able to gather all that historic information and therefore enabling further analysis of this to get insights around which you can react. A couple of enablers are also there on the FiLab system, enabling you to connect to sensors. And this picture shows roughly how these enablers are connected to the data platform I was talking about before. So There's short time to elaborate on them here, but essentially there are a number of enablers you can configure to be able to deal with the protocols that your particular sensor network supports, and then you essentially connect those sensors through these components as to be able to update the context broker component with all the context information that is relevant to your system. So, for instance, in smart cities, like in Santander, we have this running and gathering data from the different sensors that the city have deployed, and this sensor data goes to the context broker and becomes available to the applications so that they can really create fancy applications relying on real-time data that is arriving from sensors. There are other technologies that are available. I cannot go through a very much detailed elaboration on them, but just a brief enumeration of what you have available. There is a mashup platform that allows you to set up very easily what we call operational dashboards that they are typically very useful in many management applications. You wish to have widgets in your dashboard and dealing with the ability to exploit the context information that is available. This typically is a component you would like to connect to the context broker system in your application and be able to have kind of a cockpit that allows you to manage, for instance, if we are talking about a smart city application, the status of the city, and for instance, displaying in the map the different sensors and how the measures change over time and stuff like that. There are some videos that are available in the e-learning platform that has been developed where you can see some applications using this. The last set of enablers that I wanted to talk about had to do with development of user interfaces. So there are, just for your knowledge, there are enablers that help to develop 3D-based web user interfaces, also user interfaces that have to do with augmented reality. So a number of enablers that can be rather helpful for creating an application with those features. Very importantly, let me show you briefly, there is the notion of a catalog. I thought that, okay, yes. Where you can actually go and explore all the information that is available from the different generic enablers. Here I have opened the screen for a specific enabler, which is the big data platform that I talked about before. And you will be able to find out there how to download the software, what are the instances, the global instances that are available on FI-PPP, on how you could create your own private instances in that environment using receipts that are available. This is what you have in this Create Instance tab. And, well, documentation also about the product that will help you to start working with the technology. I don't know if I can rescue my presentation briefly. I think okay. So now another information that I wanted to show is the e-learning platform that we have set up. There are training courses, available courses, when we are updating this over time, but there are already quite relevant number of courses that you can rely on for starting to get trained on the environment. Actually, let me show you also the FI-PPP environment. This is typically a page where you can sign up. And also there is a help and info page where you can see some videos about the portals that are supported in the FI-PPP environment that will help you to start working with the technology. So go quickly back to the presentation because I think we have to finish. There are just a few slides, I think. If I can come back. Let me see. No. All right, yes. Someone help me to do this. So I think this is most, no. My goodness, I opened this one. Okay. So
Juanjo, just one comment, because here we can see the time that is still remaining for each of the speakers, and he went already above the time for some minutes. Let's try to finalize
So
this
I was going to just simply summarize that with an example of how you can set up an application, making first the platform instance of FiWare, combining the different generic enablers that will be useful for you. And then you have the environment to test it and to really be able to set up your showcase and demonstrate what you can do. I think that following, there will be some testimonies of some applications that have been developed and have started to integrate with FiWare technologies. I'm sure we are here to help you, and there are in the front page of, in the help and info page of FiLab, there is a a link to the place where you can also ask questions. So don't hesitate to connect, to create your account and start asking questions. There is a team supporting you. So just play with it. Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much, Juanjo.